You have been told your entire life that you are too sensitive. You have been told that you take things too personally, that your tears are a crack in your armor, a glitch in your character that needs to be fixed. Perhaps for years, you have apologized for crying. You have hidden in bathrooms, swallowed the lump in your throat, and forced a smile onto your face just to appear stable to the world. But if you are someone who cries easily, I need you to listen very closely, because what I am about to tell you comes not from a place of judgment, but from the profound insights of Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychiatrists in history. Jung famously said, "Emotion is the chief source of all becoming conscious. There can be no transforming of darkness into light and of apathy into movement without emotion." What society calls weakness, Jungian psychology recognizes as a massive surge of psychic energy breaking through the dam of your unconscious. To understand why you cry, we must first understand the mask you have been forced to wear. Jung called this the persona. It is the face we present to the world to be accepted, to be hired, to be loved. In our modern culture, the successful persona is stoic, unshakable, and logically driven. But every persona casts a shadow. Everything you refuse to be your fragility, your terror, your raw tenderness does not disappear. It is shoved into what Jung called the shadow. And here is the terrifying truth about the shadow: the more you repress it, the denser and more pressurized it becomes. When you cry easily, often over seemingly small things, it is not because you are weak, it is because your shadow is full. The container is overflowing. The tears are not the problem, they are the safety valve preventing a total psychic collapse. Let's look at the first deep psychological root of your tears: high-functioning anxiety. Jung observed that neurosis is often a substitute for legitimate suffering. Many of you living with this easy tears phenomenon are not actually depressed. You are in a state of hyperarousal. You are the planners, the controllers, the ones who think 5 steps ahead. You have built a persona of strength and reliability. To the outside world, you are the rock. But internally, your unconscious mind perceives the world as fundamentally unsafe. You are holding your breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. This creates an immense somatic tension, tight shoulders, shallow breathing, a nervous system vibrating at a frequency of fear. The tears that come suddenly, perhaps when you drop a glass of water or lose your keys, have nothing to do with the glass or the keys. They are a biological purge. Jung would argue that your psyche is attempting to regulate itself. You cannot hold the weight of the world in your conscious mind forever. When the barrier breaks, and you cry, it is your parasympathetic nervous system violently taking over to force you to stop, to force you to breathe, to force you to release the cortisol that has been poisoning your blood. It is a necessary collapse. If you didn't cry, you would likely break in a much more permanent and dangerous way. Consider also the tears that arise during conflict. This is a source of shame for so many. You are in an argument. You want to defend yourself. You want to speak your truth with power and authority, but instead, your throat closes up and hot tears stream down your face. You feel humiliated. You think, why can't I just be angry? Why do I have to cry? Jungian analysis offers a powerful explanation here. This is the result of the good child conditioning battling the shadow self. For many of us, growing up, anger was a forbidden emotion. If you expressed rage, you were punished, silenced, or withdrew love. So, you learned a brutal lesson. Anger equals abandonment. As a child, to survive, you pushed your aggression into the shadow. Now, as an adult, when you are treated unjustly, that primal aggression tries to rise up to defend you, but your internal programming slams the brakes. The psychic friction between the need to fight and the fear of being bad produces a short circuit. That short circuit is the tears. You are crying not because you are sad, but because you are frustrated. It is impotent rage. It is the energy of a scream that has been transmuted into water because your psyche is still terrified that if you scream, you will be destroyed. This leads us into an even deeper layer of the unconscious, one that Jung spent his life exploring: the ancestral or generational trauma. Jung proposed the existence of a collective unconscious, a reservoir of experiences we inherit not just from our parents, but from our ancestors. Sometimes, the grief you feel does not belong to you alone. Have you ever felt a wave of sadness so deep, so ancient, that it felt disproportionate to anything happening in your actual life? You look at a gray sky, or hear a specific piece of music, and you weep for a loss you cannot name. Modern epigenetics is beginning to confirm what Jung suspected: trauma can be passed down. If your grandmother lived through a war where she could not mourn her dead because she had to survive, that unwept grief is encoded in the family lineage. If your mother lived in a state of chronic, low-grade depression or anxiety while you were in the womb, your nervous system was wired in that soup of stress hormones. A baby is psychologically fused with the mother. There is no boundary. If she was heavy with sorrow, you absorbed it. So, later in life, you may find yourself crying without a visible reason. But internally, it is that infant, that small child within you, finally weeping the tears that your mother could not shed. You are completing a cycle of grief that began before you could even speak. Jung believed that the unconscious mind is timeless. It does not know the difference between yesterday and 20 years ago. This explains the phenomenon of delayed grief. You might lose a loved one or experience a tragedy and feel nothing. You function, you organize the funeral, you handle the paperwork, you support others, you are a pillar of strength. Then, 3 years later, you drop a spoon in the kitchen and you fall to your knees sobbing. To the outside observer, this looks like madness, but to the Jungian analyst, this is sanity returning. The psyche has finally decided that it is safe enough to process the backlog of pain. You postponed the collapse to survive, but the debt must always be paid. If you are recognizing your own reflection in these words, if you feel a resonance with this exploration of the shadow, I invite you to subscribe to this channel right now. Consider it a small commitment to your own journey of self-discovery, a signal to your unconscious that you are ready to stop looking away and start understanding. Let us go deeper into a specific trigger that confuses so many sensitive people: compassion for animals or the helpless. You see a stray cat in the rain, or a video of a dog being rescued, and something inside you shatters. It feels like your heart is being ripped out. You tell yourself, "I'm just an empath." And while that is true, Jungian psychology suggests something more profound is happening here. This is a mechanism of projection. When you look at that defenseless creature, you are not just seeing an animal, you are seeing a mirror. You are projecting your own wounded child archetype onto that creature. You recognize in those frightened eyes your own ancient loneliness. You recognize the part of yourself that was once small, voiceless, and left to handle pain that was too big for you. When you cry for them, you are finally allowing yourself to feel the compassion for yourself that you were denied years ago. You are grieving for the innocence that was left out in the cold. This connects directly to another heavy burden: the unconscious guilt of simply existing. Jung often worked with patients who felt they were taking up too much space. This is a quiet, corrosive feeling that perhaps you are a burden, that by simply being alive, you are inconveniencing the world. This often stems from a childhood where your needs were treated as annoyances. So, you learn to shrink. You learn to suppress your vitality, but life energy cannot be destroyed. When you suppress your right to exist, it turns inward and becomes a deep, melancholic sorrow. The tears you cry in the privacy of your bedroom are the mourning song for the self you were not allowed to be. This is why you cry at home. Have you noticed that you can hold it together through the most brutal meetings, through traffic, through social obligations? But the moment you walk through your front door and the latch clicks shut, the armor falls off. This is not weakness. This is your psyche recognizing sanctuary. It is the only place where the persona can be hung on the hook like a coat, and the shadow is allowed to breathe. This brings us to the eighth, and perhaps the most paradoxical reason why you cry, the pain of contrast. Have you ever burst into tears? Not because something terrible happened, but because someone was unexpectedly kind to you? A stranger returns your dropped wallet with a smile. A friend simply asks, "How are you really?" and waits for the answer. And suddenly, you are weeping. You feel confused, perhaps even embarrassed. Why cry at kindness? Jungian psychology suggests that in that moment of unexpected warmth, the contrast becomes unbearable. The light reveals the darkness. When someone treats you with genuine care, it violently highlights how long you have been surviving without it. It highlights the neglect you have normalized. It is like a man who has been freezing in the snow for days. He doesn't feel the cold anymore because he is numb, but bring him near a fire, and as the circulation returns, he screams in pain. The warmth makes him realize how close to death he was. When you cry at kindness, you are crying for the version of you that had to be strong for so long without anyone to hold you. You are crying because, for a split second, you can finally put down the heavy shield you didn't even realize you were carrying. Furthermore, we must stop ignoring the biology that underpins this psychology. Jung often spoke of psychic energy, but today we can map this onto our neurobiology. Inside your brain, there is a small, almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. It is the sentinel. It decides if you are safe. For those of you who identify as sensitive, your amygdala is not defective. It is highly tuned. It is a high-performance instrument. You pick up on micro-expressions, changes in tone, and the shifting energy in a room long before others do. This high-resolution perception comes at a cost. Your system floods with stimulation. The world is louder, brighter, and more intense for you. When this input becomes too much, your body hits a tipping point. The tears are not an emotional failure. They are a biological reset mechanism. Crying excretes adrenocorticotropic hormones, literally flushing stress chemicals out of your body. So, when you tell yourself to stop crying and be tough, you are fighting your own biology. You are trying to cap a volcano. The healthy response, the Jungian response, is to let the lava flow so the mountain doesn't explode. So, where does this leave us? If you take nothing else from this, understand this. Your sensitivity is not a pathology. In a world that is increasingly numb, dissociated, and disconnected, your ability to feel deeply is not a weakness, it is a superpower. It is a sign of life. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." If who you truly are is a person who feels the sorrow of the world, who weeps at beauty, and who carries the grief of ancestors, then be that person unapologetically. Do not let a hardened society shame you into becoming a stone. The tears are the water that softens the soil of your soul, allowing wisdom to grow. They are the evidence that you have refused to become a robot. You are still human. You are still permeable. You are still alive. I want you to think about the reasons we explored today: the anxiety, the repressed anger, the generational trauma, the pain of contrast. Which one of these resonated with your soul? Which one felt like I was reading a page from your private diary? I invite you to share your experience in the comments below. You will find that you are not alone in this. There is a whole community of us who feel just as deeply, and if you know someone, a friend, a partner, or a family member who is constantly apologizing for their tears. Please, share this video with them. Validate their existence. Let them know they are not broken. Thank you for allowing yourself to feel. And I will see you in the next video.